Yeah, I think you have to give me permission before. I'll just record it and then email it to me like we did last time.
I am recording.
Okay.
Aiden knows how to record. You got it. Okay.
We got it.
Okay. All right, we are recording. It looks like we've got everybody in the meeting. I don't see anyone in the waiting room.
I'll keep an eye on that.
Amy, Rob, Gail, Tal, and do we have MJ?
Yes.
Yep. Got it. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. I'm sorry to be late. I had some technical difficulties there. We've got 3 public hearings today. So I want to get started here, and I apologize. I was all set up and then I had to screw with my computer settings there to get myself ready to go. Okay, so we've got 3 public hearings today. We're going to open the first regarding local law number 2, which is the 2020 imposing of a temporary 6-month moratorium on special use permits and site plan reviews for parcels located within the waterfront or mixed-use waterfront districts of the village. I will open it up first to board members. If any board members have any comments?
No.
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 All right, I will open it up to the public. Does anyone on the meeting have any comments?
No.
No.
All right, as it took me 20 minutes to get my sound and voice up and get off of mute, I'll give people some time on Zoom without moving too quickly here. Does anyone have any comments on the 6-month moratorium proposal that we've got?
I have one question. Will you allow people who are looking to purchase something, they'll obviously have to know there's a 6-month moratorium. That won't stop the purchase of the property.
Does not stop the purchase of a property.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Stefan, I just want to say real quick that I really appreciate that our board is considering this and is passing it. I think the fact that no one is speaking doesn't hide the fact that there has been enormous interest. We all were present for that Athens stevedoring C&D debris transfer station public meeting. So I'm going to vote yes for this. Clearly, I think it's a great move, and I want to salute you, Stefan, because you were the one who thought of it. So I think this is a great thing. It gives us all breathing room to finish the comprehensive plan and figure out what we're going to do next.
Good. Thank you, Josh. Okay, one more time, any other comments or questions on the 6-month moratorium? All right, I will close comments on the 6-month moratorium. Tal, I tell you what, so I had anticipated comments, and I structured the agenda because we're going to lose Tal at 7. So I structured the agenda anticipating doing the moratorium, kind of getting to where Tal needed to leave, spending some time on the CAC proposal, and then having Tal come back after about 15 minutes. Given how quickly we went through that, though, if there's no objection from the board, I would like to move on to the short-term rental project while we have Tal. I will take that as no objection.
Yeah, no objections.
Okay. So I'm going to move then to what was on the agenda as 3rd, which is the public hearing comment period on proposed local law number 4, which is the short-term rental law proposal. We reviewed this.
Let me just interrupt quickly.
Yep.
There's people in the waiting room. I can't let them in.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, I'm terrible at that. So, okay. So we are, for those just joining us, we are we just opened the floor for comments on the proposal on short-term rentals. Let me start with, do any board members have any comment on the law? Well, actually, let me start really quickly because I've gotten a number of questions on this, and I know we've seen a few more come in via the online methods that we've got to collect questions. The intent of this, obviously, this was put in place pre-COVID. And, you know, just from a standpoint of had our governor, like the Massachusetts governor, put any restrictions on short-term rentals, we in the village kind of would have had to scratch our heads and figure out how do we figure out where the short-term rentals are in the village, because we have previously really had no oversight, no registration, no ability to understand what was out there or how they were governed. This is not meant to be any sort of significant restriction on short-term rentals. It's not meant to be revenue generating for the village, although it does generate a small amount of revenue through registration fees. It's meant to provide registration and accountability. And that is really the primary purpose of the law, is to give us some knowledge of what short-term rental properties exist out there and some accountability for those properties. It stemmed from events that we saw happening in other local communities with the, you know, people would rent it and then there all of a sudden there'd be 500 people having a party at a short-term rental place and there was no one to call, no one accountable for it, and really nothing even on the books that say you can't have a big party. So it's about putting an appropriate level of restriction to ensure that these properties are used as they're intended to be used, and to give us some oversight and some accountability on the properties. Anyone else on the board have any other comments around this?
Stefan,
Oh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Josh.
No, I
Josh,
was
go
gonna
ahead.
say, Stefan, I just want to mention for people who may not have been following this with us that we did a prior public hearing.
Yep.
And we got extensive comments, and this law has been significantly rewritten because we are completely intending for this to reflect not just only the board's interest, but the community's interest. So this is our second public hearing on this law.
That being said, I'd like to read something in that we received today. I'm from a resident that moved recently from Hudson that kind of speaks to some of my concerns in doing this law, in drafting this. This doesn't really cover it in the law we have now, but I feel like this is a first step and it covers us, protects us in case we ever have an issue we need to go further. But basically what this resident is saying is something that I've thought, and one of the issues that comes up when Airbnbs proliferate in a community is that it does price out renters and lower income residents and homeowners that would be full-time members of the community in favor of basically it would become a hotel zone. So what I got from a resident today was, I'm coming to Athens from Hudson and I'd love to see the town actively prevent what's happening in Hudson regarding Airbnbs, much of which, at least to me, is not desirable. Rent has made the town unlivable for many, forcing out local and lower income folks. One reason is apartments are hard to find because so many of them are Airbnbs. So that is something that it's not really reflected in the current law, but I feel like this is a great first step. I feel like we're a small enough community that we don't have to worry as hard as Hudson, but that is something to look at moving forward. And I think this is a good way to cover us starting out.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you know, we heard at a town hall from Congressman Delgado brought that up as well, where there's a lot of sort of public outcry about Airbnbs because it drives out low income housing availability.
And full-time members of the community that would participate in a forum like this, you know, so then you end up losing that sense of community.
Yeah. So to your point, I think having some accountability and some knowledge of what's going on in the community, this law gets us that. So we have some semblance. Overall, I think the short-term rental market in Athens so far is net positive because it does bring in investment where we otherwise may not have it. So we've seen properties being invested in that otherwise may not have been. But this gives us the ability to kind of keep tabs on how much is happening, and it gives us a foundation to build on if we want to, if we see things we don't like as we get some visibility of this. If we see other topics or other problems arise, we have a foundation to build on for future.
Agreed, agreed.
Okay, anything else from the board?
I have nothing.
All right, I will open it up for public comment.
I would support Amy's
Point of,
comment. I think
point of
that
information, Mr.
Hi,
Mayor.
it's Suzanne McAndrew, and if you don't know me, I'm at 53.
Sorry,
Second
guys,
Street.
sounds like we've got some delay. So I had three stepping on each other. So
Let's go.
Suzanne and Ellen, I will come back. I think Mario was first, at least on mine. So I'll go through the three that started. I apologize for jumping on, but we had three talking simultaneously. So Mario.
Yeah, this delay is interesting in group meetings. I would support what Amy said because in my experience, by the time something becomes a problem, it is often too late to stem the tide of what's happening. And, I really support the law that we're planning on passing. I think that it does give a level of accountability to the village. It gives a way that we can contact folks. But I don't necessarily agree that the economic engine that it's described as is always true. I think that there is a prevailing opinion about that. I don't happen to share that opinion in total. I'm not saying it should be banned, but I don't share that opinion. And I really do want to reiterate one of the things that Amy said, which is people tend to pit it as low income versus higher income. And it's not necessarily only about losing low income housing. It's about losing participating citizens. And in a village of this size, to not keep that in mind at all times and continue to bring it into our conversations, I think would be a mistake. So I just want to go on record as saying that I really appreciate, Amy, you bringing that to the fore, bringing that comment, but also sharing your own opinion.
Thanks, Mario.
Okay, I apologize, sir. I don't know your name. It shows up as Ellen Roth.
It's Merrill Roth. It's all right. The two
Merrill,
of us are
thank you.
here. The first part is a question, probably for Tal. Tal, is this law, the proposed law, only referring to real property, to people's homes?
You can't hear you, Tal.
Could you hear the question?
Tal, your microphone is very, very low.
You couldn't hear my question?
I can barely hear him.
I'm going to type into the chat, Tal, and I can.
Merrill, are you okay if I come back to your question?
Unfortunately, I couldn't hear his response.
He's going to dial in.
Yes, are you having a volume problem?
No, I can't. Can you hear him? None, I don't think any of us can hear him. He's able to hear us.
I can hear all of you, but I can't hear Tal.
Right. We're all having that problem.
All right, that's why I'm going to call in.
That
I
was
think
much
he's going to
better,
type
Tal.
it into the chat. Do you want to talk? Yeah.
Pardon me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, there you are.
Oh, okay. I don't know why. What's different? But yeah, I mean, it could refer to
You want me to
anything other
repeat the
than real
question?
property. I know, I heard
Well,
the question.
Let's. I'm not hearing the answer, but I think that.
He heard you, Merrill. He's trying to answer.
Okay.
It only refers to real property.
Okay.
He's saying yes.
Are
if
we
first-
excluding, so that this law would potentially exclude houseboats or other forms of residence that could be used on a share basis, like a home share?
I don't understand that question.
The question is, if it is only for homes, then it would not cover houseboats and other forms of maritime land-based, in other words, docked at a pier facilities.
You know, I have never thought of that. I would say that it probably would not cover that because they're not taxable. It's not real property, no.
Okay, yeah, I think that is a worthwhile consideration because it may fall into the same issues as real property would. If you have a series of people who rent out a boat that is moored at a facility, permanently moored at a facility, and it becomes a party center.
Okay.
Makes sense.
And Suzanne?
Yeah, hi everyone. So for those who don't know me, I'm Suzanne McAndrew, live at 53 2nd Street with my wife, Christine, and my son, Aiden. We've been up here for a while and also have a home in New York City. So actually I have so I'll broadly say I'm very much in favor of what the board is proposing. I have one question, and then I wanted to share a lesson learned from what we went through because I'm on my board, my condo board in New York City. So if you don't mind. So one, how did you come up with the 21 days?
That stemmed from the questions at last month's meeting of, if I only rent a room over the holidays or that type of thing for an accommodation to local residents is what that was intended.
Okay.
So it would still require registration, right? If I recall reading that. Let me check here.
So I guess I'll just, while you look that up, let me just share the lesson learned in the
Quickly,
interest of
Jan,
time.
I don't mean to cut you off, Stefan. There's someone in the waiting room.
Okay, and I am incorrect. It does under 21 days exempts from the entire document. So.
Okay. So the lesson learned, while we continue to try to limit short-term rentals in a building, mind you, that's not a village. So you have a much bigger task than a building. That, I think we have some echo there if some people are on mute, but I'll just say the monitoring of that is challenging. So I will just kind of put it out there to the board. If you want some, any kind of follow-up on the lessons learned on how it was difficult to monitor and what we had to do to approach that, I'd be happy to share that. And I know it's a much different context, but I'll just put it out there. I'm sort of in favor of the law, and the follow-up and ongoing communication and monitoring will be key to make it pull through for the benefit of all of our community.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I'd like to just put in my 2 cents. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
This is Angel. Just wanted to introduce myself. Me and my husband Safi here. We're relatively new to the community. We renovated a house. I guess we bought it around 2.5 years ago and renovated the house, total gut renovation. And we do come up here whenever we can, but we do also rent it out in short-term rentals. So when I heard about this, I wanted to find out a little bit more about the law that's being proposed. And I have to happily say that I think how the law is written is appropriate. I think that the village should have some sort of knowledge of what's going on in the village properties. And it seems appropriate to me, and I think you guys are, sort of backing up what we want also, at least as we have a single house and it's a small house, and it's not this big big enterprise of hotels. But I really think that this village, as a newcomer, I see this village improving every time I come up. Every season it seems like there is investment in it, and it's really lovely to see, and I love that it's very slow pace. I think that's what you want to keep it, a slow pace, but in the right direction.
They're talking about rent.
Anyway, just wanted to introduce myself and say hi, and hopefully I will meet you guys once we're all back in the public realm.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan.
Sure.
Nice to meet you. Okay, other comments?
Yeah, I have a question if you can hear me.
Go ahead, we can hear you, Bob.
If a person never lives in the house, why isn't it already covered under current law? It's basically a pseudo motel, hotel. If it's all they do with the property is rent it out. Why do we need this new law here?
Because something's zoned residential that's purely rented out, we have no real knowledge or accountability for that it's being rented out. Right? We have no way to know if somebody purchases a residential property and solely uses it for Airbnb. We have, other than walking by it and having an awareness of it, there's no official way for the village to be informed of that without this.
Okay.
Because it's still not, this is kind of a loophole in the whole system, right? It's still not considered a commercial property. It's still zoned residential. It's still allowed per residential zoning. So this is to give us some accountability of that.
Yeah, and it doesn't pertain to, like, if you buy a house to rent to somebody who's going to live there for a year or 2 years or, years on end. That's residential in my, they live there then. Whereas the short-term rentals is more like running a business in a residential property.
Did that answer your question, Bob?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few houses in the village. You knew from the last meeting, somebody complained that it's rented out so many times a month. It's frustrating for them. And I know there's a few around where I am that
Yeah.
seem constantly rented.
Understood. Yep. This will give us, like I said, Bob, this is kind of our first step to getting some knowledge and accountability of how many there are out there, and then, decide if we feel we've got a problem in the future. But right now we have very little awareness of it.
Okay.
Danny, you're muted, Danny, if you're...
Sorry about that. I did read the new draft, and I just want to make sure, because I just got into the meeting. This did flip from the way the previous had been written. So I'm not covered on this law, correct?
I don't recall your concern initially in the first meeting.
Well, with the first draft, it seemed to only apply to, either owner occupied or vacation homes that were rented part of the year. But now and didn't apply to investment real estate rental income. So now it's been completely written. I'm understanding it correctly, right? Is my question making sense?
It's both. The investment, correct me if I'm wrong, Tal and stuff, and the investment properties that aren't ever owner occupied will need a special use variance.
That's right.
But if you rent a room in your property for more than, say, 21 days out of the year, that's what's in there, you will have to register, but you won't need to get a special use variance if you are an owner that occupies the property, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's for you just have to fill out the registration form, and for somebody who wants to buy a house for solely the purpose of making income through Airbnb, they would have to apply for a variance through the planning board and all that fun stuff.
Could I ask, what does that entail, going through a special, is it a special permit, or is it a variance? What does it entail and
It's
have
a special, it's a special use permit. You have to go to the planning board and show there are 16 or 17 different things that you have to basically show that it is acceptable in that zone, including parking and noise, hours of operation, all those things.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, for those who just joined, we're still on the short-term rental law proposal.
Stefan, I'm sorry, I've got to step off, but I'll be back as quick as I can.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments on the short-term rental?
I'm gonna have to reread it.
What are the, can you hear me?
You can.
Yep.
What are the repercussions if someone doesn't register their property?
Let's go back to that section.
You will be-
Fines and penalties, when applicable, shall be in accordance with those set forth in village code. So basically, it allows us to fine, and then failure to provide up-to-date contact information or inaccurate information on the permit results in forfeiture of the permit. Again, any use not in accordance with this law can be fined. And then it talks about additional 3 violations in a 24-month period results in suspension or revocation of. So there's some teeth in there.
Okay, thanks. I haven't seen it, so I just was curious.
I have a question just to follow up on Susan's question. That's all fine if somebody registers and doesn't follow, but what if somebody just chooses not to register? What's the repercussion for them?
We can fine them as well.
Is this outrageous that if they don't register and then the police have to be called or some issue where the town, can they be charged? Like, could they, like sometimes helicopter rescues, the person who was careless has to pay for the helicopter, but is there a way that they could be charged for those services that had to come out?
What would happen would be they would be cited and fined, and then before they put it up for rental again, they would have to come back in and pay the registration fee. So they'd pay a fine and then a registration fee.
But how is this going to be enforced? How is it going to be enforced? That's where I think that's.
Yep, we're gonna have to, as a board, kind of set up a quarterly review of what's out there on these websites and check them against what we've got registered.
Or Stefan, if someone complains, if someone notifies the village through a complaint form of an unregistered Airbnb.
Yeah, and actually that would be a good idea, is we could post those properties that are registered, and I'll have to check with Tal to make sure this is legal. We can post those properties that are registered on the website. So if you're aware of one that's being rented, you could go cross-reference it against those registered and get community engagement. Because Nancy, that is, I have to be honest, that's going to be a challenge for us. We're not a big team.
Yeah.
You have to kind of, probably MJ and I sitting in the office for an hour once a quarter or so, going through the registrations.
And the problem is also with Airbnb is you don't know the address of the property or the name of the person who owns it until you book it.
Okay.
So that's blocked. So you're sort of backing into it unless somebody just recognizes the property from the pictures.
Right.
Yeah.
So then you're relying on the community to do the policing for you. It's complicated.
Well, this is Suzanne again. This is my sort of, as I would just advise the board. I think it would be good in terms of behavior management if the board had a set of at least the 5 principles that you're going to do to monitor this versus come up with the ideas as they come along. Because I just know, I mean, again, I'm putting myself in a different context. It requires a person to register. But what we found in our little building, that people would work around the system by not informing the board and by not going through the process, and that created more work on the very small board. So I just, again, it's in my interest of your time to be very clear on what are the 3 to 5 things that you're going to do ongoing, because it will deter people from working around the system.
Okay.
Okay.
Could I just put my 2 cents in with some perspective? And this is, you know, I'm new here. I don't know all the ins and outs of everything, but I'm actually an urban planner, and I do advise planning boards in Westchester and Putnam and Dutchess County in the past 15 years. So I know a little bit about law, a little bit about how the municipal governments work. And one good thing about this law is that even if it's not enforced, it's there to protect you when the bad thing happens. So I think that's the purpose of putting it on there now. You know, and I don't think the planning board or actually the board of trustees wants to always get into this enforcement game of being the bad guy. But it's there, so if you need to be the bad guy, you know, you're ready to go. You know, that said, yeah, I think it's a great move to know who's there. It's the communication. You don't want to scare people off. You don't want to scare people into their basements and say, don't look over here. You want everybody to be open and know we're here. And if anything goes wrong, you guys know who to contact. Right. I have to say, from this past year, it's really mostly the summertime, I've had nothing but wonderful experiences with Airbnb guests. They've all been very respectful of my house and of my property, and I haven't really heard any complaints other than garbage getting put into the neighbor's garbage can once, and I think we rectified that. So that's the point of the law, I think.
Thank you.
Stefan, I got a private comment from someone in response to the earlier topic of boats. And this person expressed concern that boats are coming as party venues at our docks, and that we should include them in this law. So I'm just passing that on from the private comment that I received.
Okay.
Yeah, just to support what Josh just mentioned, you know, down where we live, that's already happening. So it's, you know, it's just a matter of kind of what Susan was saying, to have that listed clearly, including boats, is a good idea. It's already happening. So in case there is an issue, you have some teeth at that point.
So yeah, the current law states a standard short-term rental is the rental or lease of a dwelling unit, or other establishment.
Yeah.
I don't know if boats fall into that.
I think you would run into, you know, a little legal schmiegel on that if it's not listed specifically. You know, if something should come up, you know, because this is more in the event of something happening, I think it would have to probably be explicitly listed.
I don't know. The IRS says that a boat with a toilet that you can sleep on with a toilet counts as a vacation home. So the IRS tax laws around vacation homes include boats and trailers.
Okay, I think that's a fairly easy add. You know, I think we could, the way it's written now, we could probably enforce it, but I think a little bit, you know, adding something about a moored vessel makes it very easily enforced. So I think that's fairly easy.
You know, it's interesting. The other day, for a completely different reason, I was looking on Airbnb for Athens, and it includes the town and the village. Obviously, it's not isolated to the village, so the numbers are a little skewed. But it did definitely include boats on it. So
Okay.
I was surprised to see that, and had never been aware of it before. So that just happened to happen the other day, yesterday or the day before.
That's good to know.
Okay. Other comments?
Oh, and actually there was also a trailer parked at a marina listed in Airbnb.
Just right down here.
So I assume that's kind of right next to the River Grill.
I know. Hi, I'll speak.
Hi, Christine.
Hi, we are extremely new to your area. My husband, Michael, who's below, just named, newly purchased a home in your beautiful town. After looking for about 6 months, we found the house quicker than we had anticipated, and we still have a son who's in high school, so we're not going to uproot him for his last year of high school to relocate to your town. So we fell in love with the house, we found the house, we closed the deal, super excited. However, we cannot float 2 mortgages. So our decision, after speaking to other people that do have Airbnbs in your village and do very well with them and are happily doing them, we thought it would be a great solution to our situation. We were originally looking in Hudson. Hudson was a little bit too built up for us at the moment, and Athens was like the next best thing for us. It has a little bit of something, you know, not so quite quiet, however quiet. So we're Airbnbers. So I'm here. This is my second meeting. Unfortunately, my first meeting last month was just as someone was specifically speaking about my house in not a very happy manner. It really kind of upset me because this person had my cell number and could have reached out directly if she had an issue. My husband and I do stay in our house on occasion. Our grown children stay in our house on occasion. They're over 21 years old. They're adults, respectful. So I've since spoken to other neighbors, specifically asking, is there a problem with my house? Do you have a problem with my tenants? Do you ever feel unsafe, uncomfortable, you know, whatever? She very honestly said there was one incident where she thought that the person that we rented to had guests over. We advertise on our Airbnb, no parties. So had somebody texted me that night and said, listen, you have 20 people going in and out of your house, I would have shut it down. I have no problem being respectful of all of you and everyone in your village. I've owned my home on Long Island for 27 years. 28 years actually. I do have an Airbnb on my block, which is new. It's fine. I've stayed in Airbnbs. They're a fabulous solution. When you're a family of 6 or 8 or 10, half of which are small children, to stay in a hotel is unheard of. An Airbnb is a fabulous solution. I'm highly rated. I'm a super host. I'm highly rated as a guest. I've since changed a few things because it was upsetting to me to think that people in this town that I would like to be part of someday are upset. I changed my age limit to 20. I think our age limit was 18. Now it's 21. I only take verified customers. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Airbnbs or if you'd stayed in Airbnbs, but our rules specifically say that you have to be verified. Maybe you want to add that into your law, that any Airbnb renter can only accept verified people, meaning that they have to give government issued ID. So if they don't get verified by Airbnb, they can't rent my house. I've changed my nights to longer stays so that I don't have so many people coming in and out. You know, I'm really trying to do what needs to be done. Unfortunately, I got into this meeting a little bit late. That was my fault. And then I waited a few minutes. So I didn't realize you were going to get to topic 3 so quickly. I had read your agenda that this was topic 3. So I didn't miss the beginning of this. I only kind of heard the negative parts. So I would love it if anybody would love to tell me how I can work with you to make this work. You know, my feeling was when I came into Athens and I saw Crossroads and I saw the bakery and I saw all these things, it's like I felt that tourism was something that the little town is interested in. I mean, the Stewart House, the River Grill, the Friday night concerts, all these things were so exciting to me, thinking that you guys as a town want to bring in tourism, want to be a summer location, want people to come up in their boats, come up for the weekends, spend their money in your little shops. My goal was to be a part of that. So
as
please
a
tell me
host,
what I can do.
yeah, I think as a host, you're doing the right things. This law isn't reflective of what you're doing. I'm sorry that you had an issue with the neighbors. I feel like something like this being in place would actually make it easier for neighbors to resolve these kinds of issues, because at least the municipality will be involved. You won't have to say like, oh, you had my cell phone number, you could call me in the middle of the night. They'll call somebody else will call somebody. So, and nothing will get like heated the way things tend to get when neighbors have.
Honestly, it didn't even get heated. I've been to my house quite often. Every time that one of my children goes to that house, they happen to use my husband's car because we try to keep all the money. For whatever reason, it's always the same car. So if this person was watching my house and was counting how many times I rented it out and was counting how many times I was there, they could have reached out to me. So I kind of felt like they didn't even give me a chance to make it right. And so therefore I'm opening my mouth and I'm going to be forthcoming and saying to everyone, I'd like to be part of your town. I'd like to be a neighbor someday, just not today, but someday down the road. But I'd like to start off on the right foot, and I'd love to financially support the town. I'm looking to bring in tourism. You go into my Airbnb and there's a table of all local businesses.
Christine, I'm one of the trustees. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise. I just am, the sense that I'm getting, please, my apologies if I get this wrong, is that, and you said you missed the first part of the meeting. So
yes,
the sense that I get is that you feel that this law is potentially a threat or unfriendly or hostile toward you and your Airbnb property. And I want to assure you, my sense of the law and from all the other board members, that is completely not the case.
Okay.
That is, we respect people's property rights. We respect people's a desire to use their property for Airbnb, but we also want to balance it against the possibility of properties becoming nuisances like they have in other communities, not ours. So everything that you've said, that you've done, would actually make you kind of a poster child for us, as far as I'm concerned, as an ideal Airbnb owner. And I'm very sorry that you did have a bad experience with a neighbor.
Well, it wasn't even a bad experience, and I don't want to hurt feelings. And I like my neighbors thus far. I've hardly met anybody, but it was just a little bit surprising to me. Like I would have been okay with this person just reaching out to me, and I feel bad that this person was uncomfortable at all. So I really kind of felt bad about it, because that was never my intention to blaze into your town and upset people. My intention was to be part of your town someday and to bring in money into your town. I mean, I literally, please, everyone, go on Airbnb, check me out. If you want to critique it, feel free to send me your thoughts. We're at 34 North Warren Street. If you go on Airbnb, we call ourselves All About Athens.
Christine, I think there's a number of other folks on the call today that Airbnb and that have property.
Okay, great.
This is not, like I said early on, this is just about having some awareness and accountability in the village. This is not meant to restrict. It's certainly not meant to, deter. This is strictly so that we have some accountability and some knowledge of what's happening in the village.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, of course. Any other comments on the law?
Oh, I just also want to say, Christine, I love your Instagram account.
Oh, which one? The All About Athens?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's actually my husband. I usually take
fabulous.
And he posts. Well, that's exactly what we're all about. So,
they're beautiful.
we just want to promote everything. Although now we're in pandemic and I can't promote anything, but that was our intention. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks.
Any other comments on the short-term rental law? Okay. I will close comment on the short-term rental law then, and we will move on to, so we did go out of order, Christine, I apologize, but we had our lawyer had to step away for a little while, so I wanted to cover the two laws that were pertinent, most pertinent to him. So the third that we're going to cover today, out of order to the agenda, is a local law proposed to establish a conservation advisory council for the village of Athens. Josh, you want to walk us through this a little bit?
Sure. Stefan, for the benefit of people in attendance, our board has taken a number of steps to be kind of win-win, both to help and benefit the village and its residents, and also address the stewardship of the environment. One of those is we're looking to become a certified climate smart community. And in order to do that, we have to have a climate smart task force, a resident task force. And at a meeting a couple of months ago, we created one, but in the intervening time, we had the huge problem of the Athens stevedoring C&D debris transfer station. And we've had complaints, a number of complaints about odors from industry, concerns about other industries on the environment. And so fortunately, New York State has a vehicle that communities can use to create essentially an environmental advisory committee. They call it a conservation advisory council. And so I've proposed this law for the village to create a council, a conservation advisory council. And if we pass the law, then we would put out a call for people who are interested in being members. We'd look for people with a variety of backgrounds and expertises. And this Conservation Advisory Council would advise our board, the village board, on climate smart communities, trees, and any other environmental issues that might come up impacting the village.
Comments from board members? Okay, so and Josh, I apologize, I didn't get back into this after you and I last talked. So under section 5, where it talks about the powers and duties, I think we should call out the climate smart piece specifically. And I also think we should amend local law 4/2018 and take section 3, which is the duties and responsibilities of the tree committee, move those under section 5 of this law, the powers and duties of this council, so that we kind of consolidate all into one. Another idea that came up would be this would be an excellent community board to liaise with an organization like Peckham, to work with them on the work that they're trying to do around odor reduction, around hours of trucking, and some of the other climate pertinent issues that we're seeing with Peckham and the work that they're trying to do to address those. This would be an excellent liaison board with them.
And also, Stefan, if we're getting specific, we have gotten complaints or concerns about Iroquois compressor.
Yep.
We've gotten concerns about Athens Gen. So all of these are items that our board, we don't really have the expertise on the board, the professional subject matter expertise, and we could put that into a conservation advisory council. And
good. All right, I'll open it up to public comment.
I just have a question about how things work. Why is it that when you make this, put together this council or committee, that it becomes a law?
Well, it doesn't have to.
I'm just curious. I'm not arguing it. I just wondered.
Well, as an example, when we put together the Climate Smart Community Task Force, that was just a resolution.
Okay.
But the reason this is a law is because this is actually something that is kind of encouraged and described in New York state law.
Okay.
And in the law, it says that communities can pass laws to create their own conservation advisory council. So I think it gives it a little more gravitas and significance than something that has been passed just as a local resolution.
And we had done the same, Susan, with the tree committee, which I think, now I would see the tree committee falling under part of this. We included the tree committee as part of an overarching tree law in the village. So that one is enacted via law as well.
Okay. Thanks.
I could pop in with a little bit of experience, not a whole bunch of memory because it was around 8 or 10 years ago, but I worked with the town of Phillipstown in near Cold Spring. It's within Cold Spring, New York. But it is, as Dr. Lipsman said, it is in the state law, and it does give a little bit more gravitas to the environmental concerns of any community, especially when you have larger industries coming in. You have, there's the committee that could turn into a board. And I believe the committee is advisory, but then at some point it can turn into a board, which would be an approvals board. But that's not necessarily where it goes all the time. But it helps out in the process of reviewing, site plan applications and that kind of a thing.
Right. It also assists us with potential future grant applications.
Stefan, a quick question for you while we're waiting to see if any other residents have a comment. I did prepare a companion resolution if we pass the Conservation Advisory Council law tonight, a companion resolution that rescinds the creation of the Climate Smart Community Task Force and declares that the Conservation Advisory Council will assume those responsibilities. So we can revise the law, but I don't know that it's necessary.
So I would like to revise it for the specific duties of the tree committee as well, to put that into this.
Just so you know, with many laws, this one has language in it that says it's, I think, section 5, item 9, carry out such other duties as may be assigned from time to time by the Board of Trustees. So I would hate to, I'm not sure whether you're looking to postpone possibly the adoption of the law tonight for these amendments. I would hate to put it off because it would be very helpful to have it passed in terms of moving ahead with Climate Smart Community designation. But perhaps we could, if you're okay with it, pass it and then look to make amendments related to the tree committee, at a subsequent meeting.
Can I ask a question? It just popped back in there. Do you have any idea who the person under 30 is going to be to serve on the board? Have you tapped somebody? Because it says there used to be a person under 30, and I was thinking, who's that going to be?
I don't have a specific person.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that, I don't know where that part, I mean, I get it, like a young person because the climate
That's actually part of the law.
Yeah.
The state law, that is to say, that says that you can, these committees are encouraged, strongly advised to mandate young membership.
I have to do some recruiting.
We will.
To Andy's point, perhaps we should change the shall to a should there.
You could have 2 60-year-olds part-time.
That one popped out at me. I was like, who's going to get involved? Okay.
Other comments?
Yeah, I got a question. I believe it's section 5, part 8, where it says the council can accept gifts and property, basically to do what they want with. Can you describe the thinking behind that?
Well, yes. This, though, I don't, Bob, I don't necessarily see the part where it says that the Conservation Advisory Council can decide what to do with it. But what this is, let's say, for example, the Hudson land, the Scenic Hudson decides to create a park and wants to give the land to the village. This would be an option for that. Or if somebody wants to give an easement of property to allow it for natural use, but not actually give it to the village, this would be an opportunity for that. It's kind of a, it's sort of a catch-all, or it's like an addendum to the law. This is a model law, by the way. I didn't write this, I just tweaked it to make it Athens specific. This is a model law that channels the authorities and powers of conservation advisory councils as dictated in the state law.
But it also, Bob, states that it accepts, they have the authority to accept in the name of the board. It requires the trustees to provide a resolution, and any property would be accepted in the name of the village.
But the village board still gets to decide what happens with that gift.
100%.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask Josh, how is this going to be posted so that people do know that there's actually a request for folks to be part of this?
Well, I'm going to work with our ace crack ComCom, and we'll figure out the best way to get the word out. I would envision that we would do maybe a 30-day period to allow time, or even a 45-day period to allow time
And
for
that
the word
that would start pretty soon? That would begin soon, Josh?
If we pass it tonight, yeah, I think if we pass it tonight, what I would do is I would come up with kind of a marketing plan in conjunction with Amy, and then we'd either, if it seemed very straightforward, we just begin to do it. But you want to get the right people. It isn't just people who have an interest in environmental issues. You want to try to get people who have actually some kind of professional background and experience.
Right.
And also, I've been in meetings or seen where you want to try to get people who get along well and can work with each other. You can't always determine that, but if you have somebody who's like an advocate for a particular issue and they just want to get on the Conservation Advisory Council to advocate for that one issue, that may not be a good person. So it will ultimately be our board who will approve the membership of the Conservation Advisory Council. And we'll want to come up with like a letter or a description of the kind of people that we're looking for. Then we'll review the applications or requests to be on the committee in light of that information.
Okay, thanks.
Just as an aside, I know that at the high school, just talking about young people, there is both a minor and a club for kids with serious conservation and environmental interests. Obviously, that's not the expertise you're talking about, but it could be both a wonderful educational experience for a young person, as well as input from a young person who lives here.
Great suggestion, Mark.
Yeah. Any other comments? Okay, if there are no further comments, I will close the comment session on the Conservation Advisory Council. I'll close all public hearings at this time and we'll open the regular meeting. We're going to start with the lawn mowing bids. So MJ, thanks for providing these to us. We did get 5 bids. Did one of them come in at the last minute, MJ?
This afternoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have 5 bids ranging in price from $14,625 to $25,500. As those on the board recall, we rejected a bid for $24,000.
28, I think it was.
$8,000. You're right. Thank you.
28, yeah.
Essentially, this is a low price bid offer, which would put us with Flats Brothers at $14,625, unless someone has a reason why they fail to meet the requirements of the bid. MJ, have we confirmed insurance with them yet?
Yes, they all had insurance certificates.
It's unfortunate, like all we have is the prices. We don't have any information on these companies, and I don't know if anyone knows any of them personally or has worked with any of them before, but I mean, last year we went with the low price guy and it really backfired. I think, is Double R the company that we used last year after we had to readjust?
Yes.
And she came back in
17,850.
I know it's not the cheapest, but it saves us a lot. And she did an amazing job last year. So that would, just because I don't know, you know, there's cost and then there's value. So
yeah, but we don't do.
Sorry, motorcycle. What?
It's best price bid. That's what we're required to go on. So if they meet, unless we can show that they fail to meet the requirements of the bid, we are required to go with low price.
Gail, you were in with it when we looked at these. His proposal was very good, I thought, and it also had some references for jobs that he had done. If anybody wants to see more of the information on them, though, I would be more than happy to send it to you tomorrow.
You guys have seen you guys have seen it though? You think it's a
he
value?
He works for the town. I believe he's the town supervisor.
Oh.
Is one of the guys that put this in.
Okay.
So I don't know any more than that. It's just that they were all really well prepared documents that we received, I thought. And but like I said, if you want any of the accommodating paperwork that came with these, I would be more than happy to send it to you. And you could base your resolution on, you know, the fact that if all the paperwork is intact and looks good, to go forward with the lowest bid. Just up to you.
Yeah, I trust you and Gail that you reviewed. I didn't know if any more information than this had come in. So if you guys looked at it.
They even gave a list of all the equipment they have. I mean,
oh wow, okay,
very extensive.
Okay, good.
Which one are we talking about now? Flats Brothers?
Flats.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say, this is proof right here, the power of social media. We came back with 5 bids on this. That, you know, it's a lesson learned. I mean, it's something that we should consider in the future. I know we still got to post it legally in the official newspaper, but you know, when we put stuff out for bid in the future, we should really advertise on social media as well, because this is going to be a $13,375 savings from the original proposal. So
I want to echo what you just said, Rob, but say that in addition to it reflecting the power of social media, but it reflects the power of trustee Robert A. Scott, who was the one who insisted at our last meeting that we you know, put this out for bid again. We have just saved the taxpayers $13,000 and change. So
thank you.
Thank you very much, Rob.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. So would anyone like to make a resolution to accept the Flats Brothers bid pending final review of paperwork and requirements?
I'll make that motion.
Gail?
Second.
Rob, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. Thank you. We have a public comment from Frank Petitella regarding water and sewer rates. Frank, are you on?
I don't think he's here.
There's a couple that I don't recognize. I'll just give them a second in case they're figuring out how to unmute. Frank Petitella, are you on? Okay. We have 2 applications for water connection. And let's see if I can pull them up here in the correct order. Okay. The first So where am I? Okay, here we go. I got it now. Natasha and James Robinson at 9 Dawn Drive. Is that right, MJ?
Oh, I don't think I have it with me.
I have it. Hold on. Yeah, it says 9 Dawn Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, that's out in, I think it's in the town of Athens. It's across 9W, but there's water out there. There used to be a water hookup there. I guess they're going to build a house and put a new water line. I asked Anthony Proper about it today, and he said it was fine.
Okay. It gives the name of the individual doing the work. Anthony's good with it. There's not a lot of other useful information here on the application. So what do we need? A resolution to allow the hookup? Is that what we need to do here, MJ?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to approve them.
Would anyone like to make a motion to approve Natasha and James Robinson?
I will.
Amy?
I'll second.
Gail, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. The second is for Andrew, and I apologize if I'm getting this wrong, Andrew Scarpinato, it looks like, at 90 Union Street.
Yeah, Anthony looked at that one today too and said that it was fine.
Okay. This is requesting a water line to the foundation of a home that looks like it's going in. Questions on this one? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve Andrew Scarpinato's water hookup?
I'll offer it.
Rob?
I'll second.
Amy?
Reach.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Resolutions. Did we review vouchers?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, would anyone like to make a motion approving the payment of vouchers?
I will.
Amy?
I'll second.
Gail? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Okay, let's come to our local laws here. Let's start with the 6-month moratorium for special use permits. I did not hear of any changes proposed to this law. Based on the fact that there are no significant changes, would anyone like to make a motion to enact, what is it here, local law for the 6-month moratorium on special use permits?
I will.
Amy?
I'll second.
Josh, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carries. For the, I'm on the wrong one here, sorry. For the short-term rental, the only potential change that I heard, and I wish I had Tal here again, is the addition to, under definitions of short-term, standard short-term rental, that we would change it to definition being the rental or lease of any dwelling unit, moored vessel, or other establishment to a visitor for a period of less than 30 days. Personally, I believe that I could consider that a minor change and move forward with a resolution to pass.
Would you also add the campers that are parked?
That, I think, falls under a dwelling unit. That one I feel pretty good about.
I'll make that motion then with those changes.
Okay, Gail?
I'll second it.
Amy, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. Finally, the Conservation Advisory Council law. I would recommend we change under section 3, part 2, at least one member should be 30 years of age. That I would consider minor.
What about your thoughts on the
Yeah,
tree committee?
Josh, I would like to see the responsibilities of the tree committee specifically called out in this. So what's the drawback of waiting 2 weeks on this?
I guess none.
So then we could put in both the climate smart and the tree committee, make sure we've got those just cleaned up and all listed under the one.
Would we have another public hearing then in 2 weeks?
Yes.
So that would need to be advertised ahead of time.
Do you have to have another public hearing though? If you're not changing a lot, you don't have to, right?
Everybody heard those changes we discussed at this hearing and nobody commented on it. I don't know.
I tell you what.
I did. From a process point of view, I'm not requesting a public hearing. I didn't know whether we needed to have one. I'm hearing Mary Jo and Amy say not, so I'm not insisting on one by any means.
Why don't we, if it's okay, why don't we table it? I'll get a formal answer from Tal on how we have to go with that if we have to have a public hearing. We'll agree right now to table it into the next meeting. We'll just determine by the end of the meeting whether or not we need a public hearing on it or not.
We have plenty of time to publicize the public hearing, so it's fine.
All right. Correspondence. So Wayne, you still with us there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So I don't know if you've seen this correspondence. This is a little before my time. It's a spill that occurred at 37 North Water Street in December of 2017.
Yes.
There was a requirement for sampling that began on January 7th of 2018. But they state, and this is the DEC, states that they haven't been receiving the sampling. Is that you guys, or is that?
No, that was the spill response, I believe, that came down and dug it out and took samples and all that.
So who's responsible for ongoing sampling?
Well, actually, the Delaware Engineering had taken on the job of doing the sampling. And they did it for several years and it was under contract. I don't know what happened after that, whether they had gotten the approval. You might want to talk to Brock about that because they were involved in that, whether they had given us the go-ahead to not sample for a while or what, but he's got the history on what happened with the sampling.
What's entailed in the sampling? Do you happen to know?
Well, the sample was to make sure there was an oil spill down there, and they took all the soil out, all the contaminated soil, and then they would have to do quarterly samplings. That was one of the ways that we were resolving the problem, was to do the quarterly samples to make sure there was no more oil left in the soil. So as long as it would come out clean, then we were okay. I know we have some of the documentation in the office of all the sampling, but I don't know whether that contract expired or the state let it go. I don't know.
Okay, I'll get with Brock and follow up on this one then. We owe a response by June 19th, MJ, so just keep me honest on that.
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah.
The letter is copied to someone at Delaware Engineering called Ed Fahrenkopf.
Okay.
And then also someone named Andrew Fleck. I don't know who that is.
Okay. I will reach out this week. The new business, I didn't see anything in the correspondence or anything related to this Green Complete Streets plan.
That's me. I sent that out. I sent out something over the weekend. This has to do with, there is a U.S. Department of Transportation program called Complete Streets, which is a set of guidances and standards that communities can use to get what are called complete streets, which essentially means streets that are accessible to everyone: wheelchair accessible, bicycle accessible, pedestrian accessible, automobile accessible. Cornell Cooperative Extension has helped other communities in the area. Hudson is in the middle of a Complete Streets program, and they are actually interested in doing a twist on Complete Streets, something they're calling Green Complete Streets, which they spell green with an E for our county, but it also means green because it's a combination not only of kind of their urban community programs, but also their environmental programs. And so it would focus on pollution control, water runoff. And so what this is they want to submit a grant proposal. They haven't been funded yet. They want to submit a grant proposal to the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute to develop a green complete streets plan for us. There would be no commitment on our part for funding. We wouldn't have to pass any resolution or a law. All they're asking for is a support letter. And the project would involve that they would first come up with a plan to create this green streets plan, which mostly consists of what are called walking audits, where the staff, the Cornell Cooperative Extension staff, and then presumably members of our Conservation Advisory Council and any other interested citizens, perhaps DPW, that kind of depends on the flavor and nature of these walking audits, which would be developed as part of the grant that they get. And then once that's done, they would use that information to create a plan for us of how we could reconfigure our streets to be complete streets. We would be under no obligation to do anything with that plan when it was finished, but it would seem like it would fit in well with our talk about redoing 385, our comprehensive plan update, our climate smart community. It would dovetail very nicely. So it just seems kind of like a win all around, in that we don't have to do anything other than the mayor would sign this letter of support, and then that they will use that to submit for their application, which is due Friday. And then if funded, presumably by that time, we hopefully will have our Conservation Advisory Council with whom Cornell Cooperative Extension could work.
Okay. Well, we don't even need a resolution on that. I'm happy to sign that.
I don't have letterhead. So MJ, I think the fact that you put this on the agenda suggests to me that you have seen this item. Are you able to put it on letterhead and get it to Stefan for him to sign and then get me an electronic signed copy on letterhead?
I put it on Dawn's desk. I made it out just in case. So it's on her desk if you want to sign it.
Okay. I will make it in on Friday. I'm sure there's getting to be a stack of things for me to sign there.
Okay, just keep in mind that it's due Friday. I'm not sure exactly what time. So if you can
figure out how to make it in tomorrow.
All right. Thank you very much, Stefan.
Okay. Okay. DPW building. Rob, you want to share the latest?
From what I understand, all the deep test digs have been completed. I believe that they were notifying the Indian tribe. What was it? The Mohawk, I think it was, or Mohegans? Mohawk, right?
I think so.
They were notifying them that it was nothing of any significance found. I believe the only piece of items that were found was some piece of equipment that might have been used for brick making back in the day, but nothing of any significance that the Indian tribe would declare as valuable. So with that said, that the project is going to move forward and hopefully maybe break ground next month, I believe, right?
Yeah, we were hoping for June 1st, so we'll that's coming up quick.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Let's set up a photo op when we break ground, and we'll get a press release out and stuff.
Okay.
We'll get a photo op with a couple of us there, and Jason and
standing with masks on and 6 feet apart.
And I one more thing. Did we agree on possibly at the very least running the tubing in the concrete for radiant floor heating?
Jason sent an email 3 days ago saying that he was going to get us the proposal for that.
Okay.
So we still have a little bit of a trade-off discussion that we need to have on that, as far as how do we add that and take some of the options that we had in there off and still remain in budget. So we need to have that conversation.
Okay.
But I haven't seen the proposal for it yet.
Okay.
Okay. I think that's it on the DPW building, but the good news was it's negative for any archaeological impact that might have stopped us. We're in phase 1, so it turns out we didn't need to declare it essential. We can begin work in accordance with phase 1 of the governor's plan. Comprehensive plan update, Josh?
Yes, not a whole lot different from what I said last time, except we're getting pretty much close to the end of having the survey put together. At the last meeting, the steering committee essentially gave our consultant the go-ahead to put the survey into SurveyMonkey form, which is an online tool that people who have computers can use to answer the survey questions, so that the steering committee can kind of see how it will look for the end user. And that hasn't happened yet. We don't meet again for another month toward the very end of June, but it will happen by then, and people will be able to review it. At that next meeting that we have, we'll also hopefully have a little more, less fogginess about what's happening with reopening and what, if anything, we're going to do in terms of the public forums. If we are able to go ahead with the public forums, whether it's in sometime later in the year, they'll be different. They'll be set up different than they were going to be set up. They'll be set up to be coming in toward the end of the process, still important, still significant information, but the way the public will participate would be different than at the beginning, where they would be giving input on creating the content.
Okay. You want to talk funding at all?
Well, we did get notice from Hudson River Valley Greenway, which is our funder for the matching grant of $9,900, that that money comes from the state, and the state has frozen it temporarily because of COVID-related budgetary woes. So we're basically floating this project until that's unfrozen. I did also have a conversation with Athens Town Supervisor Butler. As a reminder, this is a joint town-village plan, and he has committed to match the village's $4,000 that we've committed. So we've got $8,000 in cash. We already have about $6,000 in matching contributions from the volunteers in my time. So hopefully at some point the Greenway contribution will be unfrozen and either in whole or at least in part. I've also had a conversation with the consultant, and we're looking to scale back anything that were kind of nice to have things that we were going to use when we thought we had the full dollar amount, to be just the absolute necessary things to still come up with a high quality product. The other question that I have actually for you, Stefan and Mary Jo, is I've asked the consultant to rush and get in any unbilled charges that she has so far before the end of the week, which is the end of our fiscal year, so that we can pay that out of this year's money and kind of start afresh with her for next year. So
that would be fantastic, because there is still a fair amount of money on that engineering line that we could pay this out of. Is that still doable, MJ?
We just received one of her bills. It's not on that abstract though, because we just got it. So I'll pay that one too.
Okay. Okay. So, when Josh and I talked about this, we don't want to slow this down. I think the comprehensive planning is one of the most important things we're doing right now, because we have other things hinging on it, like, for example, the moratorium and potential zoning that comes on the back end of the moratorium, as well as the application for the BOA. I think developing that plan is very important. There is funding. Cover it if we need to. It will use up a larger chunk of our 2020 engineering funding than I would have liked to, but we'll use HOPE as a planning tool here. Plan on funding it ourselves if we have to, and hope that we get the funding from the grant ultimately before year end. But I think it's important enough that we proceed with it regardless.
just keep in mind, it doesn't actually even need to be year end. We have until November of 2021 to finish, and that's without even requesting an extension if we need it, based on having slowed down during COVID. So, it's I guess as long as it comes in the same fiscal year, right, between June 1st and May 31st of 2021, it has the capacity to make us whole again.
Right. Okay, good.
Can I just ask for some clarification about that, just because I didn't understand something that Josh said? So because of COVID and because of a lack of opportunity for larger groups of people to meet, are you saying that the public will not have the ability to participate in the earlier end of this?
No, the public will have an opportunity to participate, because we're going to be doing these surveys.
Oh, okay.
And the surveys are anyone in the town and village can fill those out. But the process legally requires some public hearings, public meetings.
I guess that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yeah, those will happen, Marie. It is not a comprehensive planning review and update without all of that public input. We are legally not allowed to do it ourselves.
Okay, I
That-
can understand that.
That has to happen, but all I was saying is that because it will come later in the process, it will be structured differently than
Got
it
it.
would have been had we done it at the very beginning.
Got it.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Amy, you want to tell us about the farmer's market? Off mute, preferably. It would help if we unmuted.
I had to stretch for a minute before.
Sorry.
We've gotten some apps back. Mary Jo informed me that we have a few apps back. They have until the end of the week or so for everybody to get it in. We're still moving forward. We're gonna tap some more people because Coxsackie has sort of pushed their start date back, gonna be like closer to ours at this point. They're kind of up in the air. So we're gonna tap some more people as well. But you know, we're moving along cautiously and with hope.
Proposed start date?
July 19th. So hopefully we'll get, you know, right now there's 3 or 4 definite people that have shown that they're going to participate. But you know, like I said, we're cautiously moving forward optimistically.
Yeah. And just to make sure I've got it right and to notify the folks on the call here, we are legally allowed to move forward with a farmer's market in phase 1. I think some were moving out prior to phase 1 in accordance with
yes, well,
rules and regs set out by the New York State Farmers Market Association.
yes, the farmers markets were essential from the beginning as it's food. There are regulations. In our application, Nancy put it together. She put what the regs were as of May, I believe 8th was when we put the application together. Those will probably change as things move forward. We've spoken to a lot of the vendors, a lot of the farmers that say they've already participated in markets with these kinds of restrictions. They have a different take on how it works, but we also had discussed tapping them for ideas as we move forward. You know, what works, what doesn't, how have you found this to be, what should we do to make it as safe and as also still enjoyable as possible for people.
Okay. Where are we? Go ahead, Nancy.
Just to add, I'm in touch with the market manager for Hudson, the market manager for Kingston, and also I've spoken to Eileen Goebel, who's the market manager in Coxsackie, and it's the Farmers Market Federation of New York State. That is the association that is the guidance and the guiding source for all farmers markets in the state, and that's what we're looking towards.
Thank you. Where are we on a 501(c)(3) or an organizational structure to ensure and support the market?
We're pushing that until next year. Right now, we're doing it. We decided because we don't have any funding to start that and get our own insurance and whatnot. We're going under the auspices of the village for just year 1, which will be a truncated season anyway.
Okay.
We're planning 12 weeks. And then hopefully, if this all goes well, for next year, we will become our own entity.
Okay, good.
That's where that's at.
Perfect. Anything else on the farmer's market?
You know, I keep checking for more apps. Mary Jo's getting them. Most people are sending them right to the village as opposed to responding to the email. So, and I feel like the end of this weekend's going to be a big one because we kind of put a June 1st deadline on apps, and then we have a June 15th deadline on us deciding who gets in, and and then they have to pay.
Okay.
Although one guy sent his money in right away.
Last email I saw, it looked like we were pretty close to being ready. I mean, it looked like we had enough vendors right now that we could go live with it.
I mean, I think that there's been enough expressed interest from people who haven't gotten their stuff together to send in the apps. We got in an app from the Mushroom Guy and Black Horse, and I know that Officer Russo was down to sell his honey.
Yeah, you reiterated that to me the other day, so I can.
Yeah, so it's shaping up. It's just a little slow, and I give people a little bit of slack right now because things are just kind of intense. So it takes people a little longer to get things together, but I'm hoping that we can move forward if we have just enough variety that even a small market, just something that people can enjoy and walk down to the park, and hopefully it'll grow.
Mondays 10 to 2, is that right?
10 to 1 is what we're aiming for, I believe.
Okay.
3 hours.
Good.
That's enough, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. So that is all of the business on the agenda. We'll go around the room. Josh?
I have a few things. I wanted to give an update on a couple of continuing projects. One is the community choice aggregation. And I heard from the team that they have started some of the generic advertising, and I put them in touch with Amy. I think Amy's had a conversation or some communication with them already to do a Zoom meeting to use the various mechanisms that we have to get the word out. So the publicity is starting. Go ahead.
Sorry, Josh. They said they had a website. I did kind of call them out because they put a Facebook post up with a picture of the old board. So I was like, let me know who to send the right pictures to. I've got them.
You know why they did that, Amy? That was because they directly linked to an article that was in the Daily Mail today, and the Daily Mail, and so it transferred the photo from the Daily Mail. So the Daily Mail used this old photo.
All right.
Of,
you have to get on them.
Yeah, I've got Sarah's email address. I think we've got a stock footage of us, at least, that we could get them. So at least we got.
I have some ones from the big meeting in February where we're all sitting in a row that are kind of good. You can see everyone. So I'll get those out.
Yeah, if you send those to me, I'll send them off to Sarah to improve the stock footage the Daily Mail has there.
Mm-hmm. I have a few. I'll send you a bunch.
So I'd like to see, the last time we talked about it, they had a very sort of generic project plan around community outreach that's probably worth reviewing again now that we're hitting the period where we have to start the community outreach. Particularly given, I don't know that the COVID restrictions impact how they would have otherwise done community outreach, but the last time we talked about it was at an in-person meeting. So it might be worth having Ed come back in and kind of walk through community outreach. Does he need any help from us? What expectations does he have of the board with regard to community outreach? What's he and what's the plan? Is that something that's reasonable for the next meeting, Josh?
Well, I'm hoping to turn this stage of the project over to Amy if Amy's willing to take it.
But there's
I am. These guys kind of sold it as we do everything. So I'm hoping that my part of it is just basically linking the things that they've already done to what I've already done so that it's minimal on my end. As we discussed before we hit record on the meeting, the webinar thing, they mentioned webinar. Our Zoom, from what I understand, doesn't quite have that capability, but like you said earlier, I think if they just want to screen share, we could do it like this, but they can just share their screen the whole time. I think we can pull it off without it technically being a webinar.
I don't know that we need to do it in a public meeting, Josh, but maybe just you, Ed, and I sit down and chat through what the outreach program looks like, where they expect us to help, and what they've got on their own. and post-COVID impacts to community outreach?
Well, again, I'm happy to do that. But it's important that we stay tightly connected to Amy in the COMCOM, because she's got all these vehicles for getting information out.
Yes, my assumption is that they have all the vehicles for getting information out. I mean, certainly we can regurgitate information that they're putting out via our resources, but
They have the content. They have the content.
Yeah, exactly. I'm fine with the distribution, but I would like, I mean, for me, it's even better, I think, if the content comes from them.
I'm
happy to sit on a meeting with you, with them, you know.
Okay.
The other thing, Stefan, is I think the three of us could participate in a meeting as long as we don't do any business, right? I mean,
True.
if we just talk to them and then don't make any decisions until we come back to the board as a whole in a public setting.
That borders on business.
Okay.
What? I'll just mute myself and listen. Well, and Josh, I know you had something else to bring up about the, because it came in late, but I saw it.
Yes, I was going to bring that up next.
renewables.
Yeah. I just did. Stefan, are you satisfied with where we're leaving things with the public relations campaign?
No.
Okay, how would you like it, sir?
I would like either myself, Amy, and Ed, or you, Amy, and Ed, to sit down and have a meeting. If it's you, Amy, and Ed, then I want to get a debrief on what the outreach looks like. I'm happy to do it with me, Amy, and Ed if we think Amy.
Yes.
Okay.
If Amy is agreeable, I think that's because this is content and distribution, and they've got a well-oiled machine for the content. And
I have Ed's
And I'll
contact.
tell them what I need from them too, you know.
What's that?
I said I'll let them know what we need, what I need from them in order to streamline it for me. So yeah.
And I'm happy to jump back in at any point, you know.
Okay. I'll set the meeting up. My expectation is that they're program managing the outreach, right? That it's not, we're not asking Amy or you or I to program manage the outreach program.
No. As I told you, they've started already. They told me they started last Friday with news radio spots.
Okay.
Which I didn't even know about, and I've asked them to send me a recording or a link, and I haven't gotten it yet. But so they're on it. I mean, these things are required by law for them to do. So they don't want to have a negative brush with the law. So they're doing that. So are you good with that, Stefan?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Then the second thing related to community choice aggregation, as Amy was mentioning, is at the very end, it was my fault at our last meeting. I was in a hurry to get the community choice aggregation on the agenda. Didn't really get a chance to kind of give everybody time ahead of time to look at the green, 100% green option. And so we didn't vote for it. They have resubmitted 100% green option now. But the bad news is the prices have gone up for 100% green dramatically in the last 2 weeks. And so 100% green, not only does it not save any money, it actually costs more than what you would pay with Central Hudson if you just went with Central Hudson. So on the one hand, there's no really, I mean, would be extreme altruism to go with the 100% green program right now, since it would end up costing everybody more. But they did say that these prices do fluctuate, and at any time in the future, we can shift to 100% green. So what I was going to propose that we do is just monitor these prices with them and be ready to bring it up again when the price goes down.
Okay.
I mean, unless people want to go with it now and charge everybody more than Central Hudson, which I would not recommend.
No, everyone will opt out. Yeah, that sounds good.
The next thing I wanted to mention, I just wanted to give an update on the $30,000 that we got for becoming a clean energy community that we are going to be using to slip line parts of Second and Franklin. Just to kind of bring everybody up to speed, there had been some thought that that wasn't actually the best use of the funds, that the best use of the funds would be to divert stormwater out of the sanitary sewer. But hot off the press, we got an email this afternoon from the engineer that's working with the village on this, Lamont, Jason from Lamont, who said that working with our DPW and the Catskill DPW that has fancy underground cameras, they determined that that's not, in fact, a big source of the problem. And so the correct thing is to continue as we have planned with the slip lining. The only question I also checked with Jill Falchi at Capital Region Planning Commission to see if we were going to run into the money frozen problem with this grant that we ran into with us. She said no. She said as far as she knows. But I would just encourage us to kind of get going with the paperwork on that. And this is a question for MJ. Have we had any official communication yet with NYSERDA, submitted any of the paperwork? Do we have a designated contact person at NYSERDA for this?
Yes, we do. I've been in touch with him. He is working on the contracts. There was a part of the contract that states the village would be okay with not receiving all of the money at once. It's only $30,000 though. So I said that that would be fine. So they had to work it through the system again. But yeah, I just spoke with him Monday or Tuesday of last week. So giving him that approval and an email, he can just redo the contract and then Stefan will have to sign it again.
Okay.
And then other than that, it's fine. And he can delay the project end deadline. So we'll be fine.
Is that Robert Biederman?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Very good.
So
A few other things.
on that, MJ, when do I need to come sign something? Is that something we can move pretty quickly?
It hasn't even come back to me yet. So.
A couple of other things that I wanted to mention, just to follow up on some things I've mentioned before. It looks as if we're getting close to, I think, restaurants being able to reopen with social distancing.
Yep.
And we did. Go ahead, Stefan.
We'll talk to that in just a minute. Gail and I had the first meeting with the Coronavirus Planning Committee. I'm not sure what we're calling it. We had a meeting today and discussed some of these items.
Including, we had talked about closing off parts of 2nd Street and with music and so forth. Okay, great. I won't talk about that. I did want to also mention that June is Gay Pride Month. And we do have a vibrant gay community here in Athens. And one of the kind of things that some communities do to observe Gay Pride Month is official flying of a rainbow flag. So I have gotten a request from members of the community to see if we can display a rainbow flag for down in Riverfront Park when all the American flags are down after Flag Day on the 14th of June. So have not brought up something like this before. I don't know how that would be handled.
I think because the American flags, the Paddock Club put in an app, right? So just as a proposal, I'd be drawn up just like anything else, right?
That makes perfect sense. I'll reach back to the people that I've been talking to, and we'll see about putting in a proposal to display a rainbow flag. And I guess we could discuss that at our very next meeting.
Yeah, because the meeting is before they're going to take down those, the flags that are up now, right? Our next meeting is.
Did they ever put in an application though? Because I don't have one.
Yeah, they had put one in.
They were going to come, no, they were going to come back and with a plan, and they never did, so.
Oh, wow.
He came in twice, and then he came and talked to me personally right before he put them.
Yeah, because I don't have anything in writing in the office for it.
I thought we had an application.
We had an application, and then like they kind of like.
Yeah, we did ask for more information, but we did have a formal application initially.
And then it got COVID smashed or something. Like it never materialized.
Well, I'm one of the people that has been talking to Josh, my partner and I, and we've been talking to other people as well. And, you know, we'd like to get the application in time so that we can hang it in June. June is Pride Month in New York State. It's also the 50th anniversary of Pride in the United States of America, so it's kind of auspicious.
Yeah.
You know, we were looking at the very end of 2nd Street, where 2nd Street meets the River Park, just maybe 2 or 3 flags right there of about that size. Or we could do one big flag somewhere else. But we need the time to be able to purchase those flags, which are actually difficult to get right now. We've contacted the LGBTQ Center in Kingston, and they're trying to find an outlet for it. So I'm not sure, I didn't realize that was this process. I had just talked to Josh about it. So I'd like to be able to feel like we could move forward in purchasing these flags.
Well, I don't, are you, Mario, you and I never talked about this. Were we thinking that the village would pay for the flags?
No, I wasn't. I was thinking that I would fundraise.
Okay. Why don't you and I have a conversation offline? And we can work on an application to get before the board for our next meeting if we can, you know, find actually the availability of a flag or flags.
Okay, as long as I feel like we've got a good shot at getting them up in June.
It's going to really depend. I don't think it's going to be a question of the board making a decision timely or not. I think it's going to be a question of what you mentioned, which is the availability of flags.
Oh, we'll find them come hell or high water.
Well, if you find them, you know, our next meeting is going to be June 10th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
great.
the American flags are there, I think, until the following weekend.
Exactly.
So we give us half of June.
Super.
I had one other thing that I wanted to mention, which was we did get some complaints. And I don't know if Stefan, those are going to come up, but we got one from Marjorie Wiesahan about an alley blockage, an ongoing thing. And then we got actually complaints from 2 people about the same neighbor up on North Franklin Street. And I don't, I know we got a message from the clerk that she believed they'd been taken care of by the APD already, but I don't know what happened. I see these complaints.
Those 2, I think we talked about in the last meeting. I have spoken to both of the people who put complaints in about that one on North Franklin. I spoke to both of them. We did cite the person in question, was cited on both occasions. And I spoke to both of those individuals who put the complaints in. I have not yet made it to the 2nd Street complaint. I need to go over there with the code enforcement officer and take a personal look at it. I've driven by, but I haven't gone by with the code enforcement officer yet, which I will do.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Rob.
Anthony talked to you about the dump truck, the new dump truck up in Latham, about the electric tarp and that's where because I'm not sure where we're at with that.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do, so the request was, and thank you for bringing this up, the request was while the vehicle is in that we can save some money by doing a few necessary things. One is an electric tarp, which provides some safety to the workers when they have a truck full of hot asphalt, that they don't have to climb up on the bed to put a tarp over. It is legally required to have a tarp over the vehicle. Another is a light for salting. Another is a ladder for the bed, and I don't remember the fourth. Total amount was 4,000. It is in the budget.
Yeah.
So I would like to get a motion to approve the expenditure of that 4,000.
I'll offer it.
I'll second.
Amy, any other questions on that? I don't know that I described it thoroughly, but the main expense was that tarp, which I think is warranted to prevent them having to climb up there.
And I'm sorry, this is to come out of this year's budget?
Yeah, it'll come out of the 2020 equipment budget, yes.
And it's already in there for, yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Just one more thing. I don't know if I can meet with you or Gail regarding that letter of commendation for Officer Cole that we discussed at the last meeting at some point.
Do we want to take the vote on the?
Let's close that one, Rob. So we had a motion from Rob. Did we have a second?
I did.
Amy seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. Thank you. All right, Rob. So the letter of commendation, I would like to see it.
Okay.
And I would
yeah.
like, so we made the motion to approve it. I think it would be nice if all of us signed it.
Yeah.
On the board.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know that we need a whole lot of potential editing to it. Why don't you send it around via email? We've already made the motion to do it. We'll get a couple of quick looks at it, and then we'll get it up for everybody to sign it. But I don't think we need to wait till the next board meeting for that.
Okay.
So yeah, if you and Gail want to come up with the final draft.
Yeah, Roger had emailed me the details of the incident there, so we can go on that, so I can meet with you, Gail, at some point or whatever. We'll get that done.
Okay, sounds good, Rob.
Okay. Yep, that's it. That's all I have.
Gail.
Okay, what about the DPW contract, Rob?
Well, I haven't gave it a lot of thought in the last couple of days, but I've been so busy. But we did get the what they were proposing on their next contract.
What would help me, and MJ, I don't know if you've got this, but do you have a copy that highlights the changes from the previous?
From the last contract?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
I think he just sent that one email message that highlighted the changes.
Yeah. All right.
Do you have that?
I will finish. I've got it. I've got it. I've seen it. I will finish slugging through it here tomorrow, and I took Friday off, so I'll be able to get some work done then. Okay.
Okay, and then Stefan, as you said, we had kind of an abbreviated meeting on the COVID-19 protocols. We have a lot of stuff from the Forward New York website. We should go into phase 2 on June 3rd. And I think at that time, the only thing that's going to be different here is that our the municipal building would be open in phase 2.
Yes.
So there is a safety plan template that we would have to fill out, and I'm going to print that out and get it to Mary Jo next week, and that can start to be worked on. And once that's done, we can open up that building.
So MJ, maybe you and I sit down maybe Friday if you're available, or next week at some point.
Next
week, and just work through what you're comfortable with, what we want to commit to as far as reopening, what types of hours. You know, I think it's a behind the counter only. Do we have the plexiglass up?
We just got it. It was on back order, so we just received it.
All right. So you and I will walk through what you guys are comfortable with, and how we go about reopening.
And we should also, I think, have the town do the same thing, since they're in that building? Or do you want them to just make up all the rules and have them follow that also?
I think we'll take an initial stab at it, and then I will send it to Rob.
Okay. And that safety plan template stays right at the workplace. It's not monitored by anybody. We don't send it in. We just have to have it there for inspection by the Department of Health when they come in. As far as social distancing and the wearing of face masks, I think, Mario, you had that question you sent to me. There is no way to really enforce that. We have to kind of go by people being smart. I guess you can say things to everybody, but then you have to worry about what's going to come back at you, because people have been very, very nasty. Our one police officer said that there's like 2 to 3 fights a day in Walmart and Lowe's when people say something to somebody without having a mask. So that's sad as far as I'm concerned. I can't believe that people don't want to follow that.
We can refuse service, and this will be a conversation that we have, that MJ and I have, about reopening the offices. Is we can clearly state on the door that you will be refused service.
Yep.
I mean, one of the things that I mentioned to Gail that I have found, the managers at Stewart's just have a thankless job. You know, they don't have one, they have 2 signs. It's just an example, right? They have 2 big signs on the doors, and the vast majority of people follow it. But I have personally witnessed really awful situations, and the manager is stuck in a position where, you know, they're kind of, you know, one customer says to another customer, you know, I was getting ice cream. Man came in with 2 pre-teenage children, and they didn't have masks. But the reason that I said something is because he crowded me. He got right behind me at the ice cream stand. And I said, please step back. You don't have a mask. And he started screaming at me about, don't talk to my kids like that. And then they left, and the girl said, Dad, I told you we're supposed to wear masks.
Good.
You know, there's like tension within the family as well, right? And then they come back in, and then they, you know, they're over by the beverage cooler and the iced teas and the blah, blah, blah. And the manager says to me, if it was up to me, I'd have 1 customer at a time. This is impossible. And so when you know, my concerns about reopening is always like, we're a small village. The solution of call the police is, it's not really a solution. And so just kind of every opportunity possible to communicate that we have to take care of ourselves and we have to take care of one another.
Yep.
Every opportunity we can find.
Right. I believe also in the guidelines on that Forward New York, it says that signs should be posted like stating, you know, like I have a cloth-free covering do's and don'ts, the cleaning and disinfecting of facilities, and stop the spread of germs is another sign that should be posted everywhere. So I don't know if there's anything more we can do, just to hope that people are smart. I mean, they have to be smart about it.
Yeah.
It's, you know, I think it's just using every time something comes from the mayor or comes from the board or comes from anyone in charge of anything or comes from a restaurant owner, that there just be consistent communication. Consistent.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to talk about the street closures that we talked about, Gail?
So then we brought up about closing a section of 2nd Street for Crossroads, and hopefully the Hudson Food Studio will open. to put tables and stuff out there. Janine from Crossroads thought more of taking the little section by their building on South Franklin to put a tent out so that she can keep, in case it rains, she can still have some seating out there. I think it's a good idea. I would like to see that happen. I know that Catskill is, well, they're having an issue right now, but they're going to want to close Main Street in Catskill. Saratoga's closing different parts of streets. We wouldn't be able to do that until phase 3, which hopefully will be June 17th.
So I like we talked about it a little bit. I do like the idea of closing second and kind of being a little more festive about it.
Yeah.
With the appropriate spacing, et cetera. Janine was a little concerned about liability on the street, Tal. Is she liable or is the village liable if something happens out on the street, if something happens due to an alcohol-related incident on the street? And then she had a concern if a car doesn't see the barricade and drives in and hurts somebody, what are the liability issues associated with it?
Well, if a situation like that did happen, certainly we would get sued, and so would the restaurant owner. Whether there'd be liability, probably not, but we'd have to defend it.
Okay.
We should definitely put our carrier on notice that we are doing that so that they know and that they add whatever rider or whatever provision they need to.
Okay. All right. We would be allowing alcohol on the street. Obviously, if we were going to have Crossroads out there, allowing alcohol on the street, is there any transfer of liability around serving people on the street rather than serving them in the establishment?
Not really, because we don't own it. It's a public thoroughfare, it's a right of way. And they would have to modify their
liquor license.
Because the liquor license only says you can serve in certain locations, and they're going to have to modify that.
Okay. Her primary ask from a Crossroads standpoint was, they liked the idea of Second Street, but they worry about summer storms and the idea of thunderstorms, and if they're only allowed 50% capacity inside, and they've got a bunch of people outside and it's going to start raining, it really restricts how often they can use that or how likely it is. They have a 20 by 20 tent. They wanted to call it semi-permanently either close or restrict a portion of South Franklin right there adjacent to their building, to allow them to put up a tent, to put additional seating out there on a semi-permanent basis. Semi-permanent being essentially 1 to 2 months. So, the liability questions are all the same. And it sounds like it would be, sort of half their sidewalk, half parking, but it gets a little close to where cars are driving by. That liability, I assume, remains as we just discussed.
Yep.
But I wanted to throw that out to the board for any comment or concern that you might have about doing that.
Stefan, if they did that, semi-perm, I definitely would see this as being only a trial during COVID recovery times, and once.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Yeah. That's all we're discussing. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but in terms of, nevertheless, is there no way that it could be just like from Friday afternoon to Sunday evening? Is it too, because I don't imagine they're going to leave their tables and the tent out just unattended when they're closed anyway.
The tent they will, the tables they will not. The tent is a semi-permanent structure, the tent that they own, would stay.
I see. It isn't something that's easily taken.
No.
Yeah. And how far into South Franklin Street would they extend?
We didn't measure it. It looks like it would take up the all of the parking space that would be there, and then come out maybe another 2 feet beyond that. There would still be room, certainly for one car, probably for 2 cars to get by, depending on, I think once you take that parking away and all your parking moves to the other side of the street, you essentially wind up with a one-way street at the end of South Franklin.
Or we could close off parking on the other side of the street opposite the tent for that time as well in order to allow two-way traffic.
Yep.
You might want to talk to Anthony about that, and because having a tent in the travel zone at the same level without curbing, that makes me worried.
How so?
Someone's gonna drive into the.
We've seen people drive. Nobody goes slowly.
Okay.
I thought they should put up barriers on either side of where the tent is.
Yeah,
So that nobody can go in that little section,
like police sawhorses.
right? Those barricades, yeah.
Yeah, or barricades, yeah. I think that's what it would have to be. But the question is, can we, and it could be just like, it would only have to be the width of the building. I mean, it wouldn't have to be the whole block or half a block. It would just be the length of the building there.
Right.
Is there any concern for emergency vehicles getting past?
I think you would just have to remove if you had a barricade, you would just remove the barricade. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and the emergency vehicle would just go past the blank space
Right.
that's not covered by the tent.
But it's not, the whole road, the whole width of the road is not covered.
Question, would we need or want to do a public hearing on doing something like this?
I don't think.
Okay.
It's not required. You could if you wanted to, but it's not required.
My concern is over equity. You know, I wanna try to get with David, with Food Studio. I don't think that Lon and Lois are gonna have an issue. They've got outdoor space already. But, you know, I wanna make sure that we're able to offer the same opportunities to all of the business.
Right.
I have a question. I mean, these are really interesting ideas, and I think people are coming up with really interesting ideas. But do these ideas eventually get submitted so that we're sure that it's not beyond safety capacity?
This is beyond. This is part of the committee that we put together, so that's why we're kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was.
So I think that they would have to give us a drawing or their plan on how it's going to be set up, and they would still have to follow all the all the cleaning practices and the social distancing practices.
Okay.
But Stefan, to carry what you were saying further, if Food Studio wanted to do this, they might not want to do it on South Franklin Street because they might want to do it on Second Street. So, and when you said, are those the only two that we would think would be wanting to do this?
I don't know. I mean, I would talk to Lon and Lois as well. I don't, just to make sure that we have the conversation with them. I'll talk to David. I'll talk to Hager's Harbor. Hager's Harbor has plenty of outdoor space. I don't think they need to, and they're not even really on a road.
Right.
Factor for them, but I'll engage all of them.
But what I'm saying is, how far are we willing to go, and how many quarter blocks and half blocks are we willing to close off?
Let's make that determination when we have the scope.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would say, I like the word you used, Stefan, festive. I think this pandemic has been a horrible thing for so many people. And as I mentioned at our last meeting, it's really devastated some of our social life as a community, having to cancel so many events. So I think if we can give a feel of a village where people are here and having a good time with maybe music, even if it means closing off a quarter of a block here and half a block there, I'm in favor of it.
Okay. What else, Cal?
I think that was it. As far as like APAC and the pool, and Nancy, I want to get with you on the information you have with the pool. That's phase 4, which wouldn't be until July 1st. So
Remember, all of these dates are assuming that we progress in that.
in the 2-week period, right?
Okay. Good. Anything else, Cal?
Nope, I can't think of anything.
Amy?
Well, that's it for me.
Cal?
Nothing new from here.
MJ?
Just a couple of things. Did you ever contact that guy, Andrew Lord, about the DPW garage? I know it has to go out to bid as far as the selling of the old building.
And did we ever get the assessment?
We did get the
I
assessment.
Or the appraisal?
We did get the appraisal.
Is that going to be circulated to board members?
I will do that. Sorry, I forgot to. I won't try to quote a number. I'll send it out to everybody tomorrow. And I have not gotten with Andrew Lord. Would you mind resending that to me, and I will reach out to him. But the bottom line is going to be, we need to handle it equitably, which means we're going to put it out with an agent and list it when the appropriate time comes. We're not going to make it available for sale until we're ready to move the DPW out. But I will contact him if you'll resend that.
Yeah, I just wanted to keep touch with him.
Yeah, we had somebody else in the community that side with
And the other thing I wanted to bring up, was I've been researching a drop box for the front of the building, because we've just gone through water sewer payments, and that was brutal. And we're going right into tax payments. So we would like to make people, make it available for people to drop off their payments in the drop box. A lot of communities have them. I got a price on one today that looks good. It's $1,485, $1,485 to put it out. It's not big. It's not, offensive looking. It's got a lock on it so that you can just put your water bill or your tax payment in the drop box. I'd like to get that going because it takes 3 to 4 weeks to get it. If you're happy with that, or if you want to give me your approval on that.
I'd like to see it.
It's not very big. It's small. It's a pedestal mount. It's very small. It's not offensive. You can put it over in the corner. It was approved about 1.5 years ago by the village and the town board at the time, and they were going to start construction on the building, so we put it off. I'd really like to not have that put off any longer, because we had people banging at the door this time. So
The board willing to give approval pending my final approval of the aesthetics and location of the Dropbox?
Why is it so expensive?
I don't know. I think it's a security thing, and I think it's very, very heavy.
Probably built like a safe.
Yeah, that honestly, that didn't surprise me at all. It's basically, one way, so you can't get things out of it. It's probably steel.
You know what I'll do? I'll send you the link to the site that I found.
Yeah, is the board willing to do that, to approve the expenditure pending my approval?
Can we ask the town to pay for half, since they're going to use it too?
Are they going to use it too?
I think the town should get their own, so that they don't get confused. I don't know. That's what I thought we were going to do.
I thought I heard MJ say that it was going to be shared by the town and the village.
Oh.
Well, it can be. It doesn't matter. I know 1.5 years ago when we looked into it, we found a Dropbox that actually had 2 entries, so that you could take stuff from, like, you could have village, you could have town separate too. But I didn't see that one on this one. I was not really spending that much time on it. But I'll send you the link to what I found, and you can take
All right, I'll reach out to Rob, and we'll come up with a determination.
Evan, my answer to your question is yes. I'm willing to give you the authority to go ahead.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
So approved. What I will do though, MJ, is let's look at a couple of options. Let's see if there are the dual slot options. That approval, I'll restate it to everybody, and if I'm incorrect, then correct me. The approval is to spend up to $1,450 for a drop box. So if we can find one that's two of them that allows the village to spend at or less than $1,450, we can move forward with a proposition like that makes sense as well, and share it with the town. So we'll look at, you and I can look into those options next week.
Okay. I don't mean to be a stickler, but MJ, didn't you say it was 1485?
Yeah, 1,485.
Up to 1,500. How's that sound? All right. Thank you. What else, MJ?
Who seconded that? I didn't get that. Who seconded it?
I think it was Gail.
It was me.
No, that's it.
Okay. I just have a couple things. So I think prior to the last meeting, I mentioned the meeting regarding the Hudson Eagle Recreation Area, potential improvement expenditures on the Athens boat launch. There's a $10 million bond that's expected to come from the Bond Act that will be used for a 41-mile linear park space on the Hudson from Troy to Hudson. And the first $10 million is specifically focused on boat launches. There are 5 boat launches in the area. Part of that conversation, we did bring up the 6.3 acre parcel adjacent to it. That $10 million bond does not allow for land acquisition. But I had a follow-on meeting last week with Parks and Rec, Assemblyman Tague, Scenic Hudson, and Green Land Trust, where we discussed the potential opportunity for what's called a pre-acquisition by Scenic Hudson. Basically, Parks and Rec said, yes, we view that as a priority land acquisition to augment the current boat launch due to its lack of green space. Because they view it as a priority land acquisition, Scenic Hudson is willing to consider a pre-acquisition. Parks and Rec generally gets about 12 to 15 million a year for acquisitions. They're committed to 40 million today, which means they're 3 to 4 years out. Even if they said, yes, we're going to buy it, it would take them 3 to 4 years to be able to do it. So in those cases, what happens is Scenic Hudson will step in and do a pre-acquisition with the intent to sell back to the state once the funding becomes available. So early discussions right now. I did make the landowner aware that we were looking at it. I got the appraisals. I got, the appraisal. I got an initial environmental assessment, though I haven't seen anything in writing on that yet. So discussion at this point, certainly no promises or guarantees, but good interest and enthusiasm around the project. We talked about the coronavirus update already. I'm participating on a Capital Region Mayor's Council on Monday afternoons to talk about, how we're progressing along the phases. If you guys have seen it, I'm sure you have. Even phase 1, which is the only phase that's laid out right now, is relatively vague. It doesn't give a huge amount of information. So we kind of get together and, for example, one of the topics that we brought up very briefly at the last meeting that I will bring up again in this is summer rec programs, right? Not really covered. We've got some good ideas. Jennifer continues to be fantastic as a summer rec director, and she's coming up with some outstanding ideas on how we do it, how we social distance, how we keep it safe. So we're looking at, so I'll use that forum for things like that. I'm hoping we use that forum to start to get additional answers, right? I did have a conversation after our last meeting with Carol and APAC about, can we plan concerts in the park? And the answer obviously is, I don't know. It requires a couple of things. Obviously, at a minimum, it requires phase 4, but phase 4 is not in the least bit described yet. And I think to even say that if we're going to get to phase 4, we're going to be good for concerts in the parks, I think that's a stretch. The problem with APAC concerts in the parks is we don't regulate, and I don't know that we can regulate attendance levels. And with unregulated attendance levels, we have zero capability to regulate social distancing, mask wearing, all of that type of thing. So, it's a good forum for me to get a little bit more insight into what, specifics about phase one, where we think phase two is going to look like, what we think phase three is going to look like. Mayor Sheehan is on the governor's council, and she timed it so that she does that one and then immediately comes to this Capital Region Mayor's Council on it. So if you have questions, send them to me, and I can bring them to that council. I got a request from the principal of EJ Edwards. They want to do, they call it a moving up ceremony, where they, I think the proper word is matriculate. Is that the right word? From the 4th grade. Where they want to do it, he calls a reverse graduation or reverse, I forget. But basically the teachers line up socially distanced in the parking lot, and the students with their parents drive by and get encouragement and enthusiasm. I reached out to Wayne and Roger and said, let's, any reason to drive around the village blaring sirens and getting people excited and out on their front porch, let's take it. We do it for birthdays and stuff like that. So I think this is another opportunity to do, basically what we did on Memorial Day. Let the students, the 4th graders, get out there with the fire trucks and the police cars and parade them around the village a little bit. We'll get it out on social media and get some excitement around it. So we're looking at doing that. That'll be on June 16th. Those are all the topics that I had.
Stefan, any update on BOA?
No, nothing else.
Have you sent Lisa those maps and the?
No, I haven't. I will get those to MJ tomorrow when I go in to sign the other things.
And because once she has those, we can upload the photos as well.
I will get those out tomorrow. Yeah, get those to MJ tomorrow. MJ, I just need you to FedEx something to Delaware for me, which I forgot to do this
No, not Delaware.
Who?
Lisa Nagel.
Lisa Nagel, thank you. Elon is the proper. Okay. Thank you, Josh. That's all I've got. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll give it to Rob. Second.
I'll second.
Hale got the second. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carries. Thanks, everybody.
Night.
Good night, everyone.
Nice work.
Good night.